You know Laura Schwartz probably from a chat room, but what you may not know about Laura is the way, you know the whole thing, but the way she worked her way up the career ladder from answering phones at President Clinton's press office. You're what, 19 years old at the time?
19, youngest female ever, yeah.
That is wild. And then eventually you were producing major events at the White House.
Very major.
And that all happened in a matter of years, right?
Yeah, I started when I was 19. I was volunteering, answering the phones, and a big banquet table in the press office with all these senior citizens that were volunteering alongside of me. And then I was supposed to come back to finish school and go back to DePaul. And they said, listen, do you want to stay and help the interns over the summer? Because when I started the day after inauguration, there was no internship program yet. So I started as a volunteer, and then when the interns came in the summer, they asked me to stay. I stayed. And then at the end of the summer, healthcare started. And I was doing a lot with the director of television, and all of a sudden, we had two principals traveling on the road. Mrs. Clinton just as much as the president. So they had me staff for television interviews.
That's
and
unbelievable.
That was it. Called the parents. I said, I'm not coming back to school
I got something going on here, Mom and Dad.
If I stay? And then I was hired as a staff assistant.
I got to take advantage. That's unbelievable.
And then the Midwest press secretary a few months later. Director of television, then director of events in '97.
That's crazy. You have a book out. It's called Eat, Drink, and Succeed. Before we get into that and what that's all about, I want to roll in a little sound clip from the president talking about you. Here it is.
Laura, all the social aides are officers, and we all call Laura Sarge. Everybody in America wants to tell me what to do, and she got to do it every day.
So is that true? You got to tell the president what to do every day?
I did. I did. He thought that was kind of funny because I'd be sitting, especially when I first became the White House director of events, I must have been about 25. And here I am. I'll never forget one time I was in the East Room briefing King Hussein and Yasser Arafat and Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Clinton after they came to the agreement for the peace agreement between those warring nations. And I'm standing there giving this briefing to these men, and President Clinton's just looking at me like a proud, uncle.
That's unbelievable.
And afterwards, he's like, that was pretty cool. You did a good job, kid. So
well, you remember those moments, obviously.
Yes,
so you've written this book, Eat, Drink, and Succeed, Climb Your Way to the Top Using the Networking Power of Social Events. Why do you focus on the networking part of the equation here?
Well, from behind the scenes to history for over 8 years, I thought afterwards, how can I translate what I did into the lives of for-profit, non-for-profit, association, corporate executives, aspiring entrepreneurs, and everything in between. And then I recalled, there are a lot of people that came to the White House, Corey, and they ate and they drank, and they left with White House towels stuffed in their pockets. I mean, women with their cute little Judith Lever purses could hardly get them closed. But then others came, and they ate and they drank and left with ideas that turned into reality, relationships that became partnerships. And never was that so evident than the 1994 state visit of Boris Yeltsin. Steven Spielberg was there with his wife in black tie, looking great. Over cocktails, they started talking to these two other guys, also from Hollywood, that they really didn't know. And then after dinner, they kind of canoodled in the corner there in the grand foyer over dancing, and they kept that conversation going. Those two other guys, Stephen just happened to meet that night, were David Geffen and Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Wow.
And just 13 days later, they announced DreamWorks. And it just shows you can get more than food, free food and drink out of any event you go to, whether you've got a martini with stuffed blue cheese olives in front of you or a bottle of water and a power bar with your running team. There's a lot to get out of every moment of our lives, and partnerships to be made and bridges to build for others.
Okay, so that's the message we get when we read this book, Eat, Drink, and Succeed. Laura Schwartz, we could talk for hours. You got lots of stories to tell.
So get the book, read it. New edition out next week.
Fantastic. Always good to see you.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks
Laura
for having
Schwartz.
me.
From there, Mark, does that inspire you, Mark? Give you some passion to reach your dreams?
I have been reading